So yeah, live. All right, welcome back. We are Game 3004. That's Mobile Game Dev 2 in the winter 2022 semester at George Brown, and it's week 7, part 1 of our kind of a course update today that we're doing, as well as we're doing our first presentation. And Vince DeMann, I gotta say it that way. Sorry, Vince, you're live on YouTube now. Vince DeMann is going to impress us with his amazing project today, and that's how it's going to be, right? So I'm hoping to see what he's going to do, um, and he's going to, kind of come up with his really cool project for us. But before that, I know the pressure is real. The before that, we want to talk about some other stuff as well. Oh, Sam's trying to get onto Zoom. I see his note on YouTube, Kira. Can you give him a hand or somebody else? He says he's having trouble sending with a school ID. All right. So yeah, we're sitting at around this part right here. So we've kind of gone through half the project at this point, right? Even though this is worth 5% of your final grade, it was a bit of a bump in terms of the things that I've asked you to perform. And I did it for a couple reasons. Even though there's more, the other ones, there's the alpha release, I think, is going to be a little bit easier in some ways to pull off, because there's less features that are going to be updated than some of the other ones. And the reason why I kind of scored it this way is to kind of balance stuff in terms of difficulty. So that's why I made this 5, and I didn't make the alpha release 5. Really what I could have done is made the first playable release 5 and the project checkpoint 10, and then, thinking about it hindsight wise, maybe I should have done that. But yeah, I think the project checkpoint is probably bigger in many ways than the first playable release. So again, a bit of a balance, and that's how I kind of did this. All right, so that is where we're sitting. We're sitting at the bottom of semester. So we've just had family day yesterday. Hopefully you guys had a chance, some of you had a chance of, no, there's a peer review for as well. Some of you had a chance to rest and spend some time with family and friends. I hope you guys did that. I said some of you. Some of you. I actually had a chance to spend some time with family, and even though I had tons of work to do, I just said I bit the bullet and I did it anyway. And it's a good time to do that. Next week is mid-semester break. Some people will be using that to catch up on some of their work and or rest or play video games or whatever they're going to do. Please keep in mind that the stuff I shared with you about UB Next, which is coming up, the competition's coming up between March 11th and 13th. I highly recommend, even if you have time, at least an hour during your mid-semester break, take a look at that code. So that way you're more familiar with it, so you can compete. All of you should be competing for UB Next, even if you're not interested in working for Ubisoft, because I think it's good just to challenge yourself and put something forward. I know it's busy. It's a busy time, and everyone's busy. But what I always like to say is, there's no good time. There's really no good time for stuff like this, right? And a lot of times it comes out as fast and furious, and you just kind of deal with it. So there's Sam. Sam joined. Hey, Sam, how you doing? So yeah. So that's where we are with this part. Second half of semester is coming up as well, where your alpha release, which I'm going to talk about in a second, is really converting your project to mobile. That's what's really happening with your alpha release. So some people in the past have used the mid-semester break to do that, where they've kind of come together and kind of put together their alpha release over the week. And it's up to you. Again, there's no classes scheduled for next week. It doesn't mean you can't get together and do other stuff. What did we do last week? We worked with Blender, and I've been doing this Blender Unity thing the entire semester so far to get you guys up to speed with creating your own assets and understanding how to make models and all that kind of stuff in a more, kind of a deeper way. Some people like it. Some people have reported that it's just, it's a little bit challenging for them because they're not 3D artists or whatever. And again, I don't have high expectations of you being a 3D artist at all. That's why I post the models, right? So I post the models so I get you to see the process, you understand it, and it's more of a case study on how that's going to go, right? We did not. No, we did not. But like I said, these things are going to pile up, Vince. I'm gonna get them to. We're gonna, kind of get all that stuff going on. And the reason why we did this is because we ran out of time. That's something that we didn't. That's what it was supposed to be in Unity, but we didn't include this. Let me just cross this out. Thank you very much for that, because we didn't have a chance to do that. But the rest we did, right? And we didn't do this. We didn't do health bar for enemies. We just did a health bar for ourselves. So that's something that we kind of came up with. We didn't do billboarding. I'm going to talk about that when we come back to do the health bar again. So things that are left over from this week are going to be picked up for the next one. Health bar for destructible objects. I mean, I talked about it during the lab, but we didn't actually do it. And one thing you can do with destructible objects that are similar to swapping out the material, you can swap up with the material and the model, which is interesting. So swap out the mesh, which is neat, right? So if you want to destroy a wall, you can keep out, kind of removing parts of the mesh or replacing the mesh so that the wall looks like you're breaking it. Okay, and there's other things you can do in addition to that, like use particle effects that are basically showing that you're breaking down a wall or something like that. And some people use particles as big as bricks, where you generate a brick that falls kind of, out of the wall, so quote unquote. A lot of this, again, remember, is that everything we do in games is like smoke and mirrors, and that's how mostly it's done. Okay, I'm gonna discuss saving and loading at some point. Yes, we are. That's gonna be the next time you guys come back. I will show you saving and loading. Okay, and that's when it's supposed to be. I think we're supposed to talk about scriptable objects again, and that's when we do saving and loading here, and it'll be due that week. That's one of the things that you're gonna be dealing with your mobile release right away. So that's what's happening right here. Saving and loading is happening there. We're also going to briefly discuss how to do a quest system. I got lots of stuff going on. So what's going to happen, and I got to talk about this a bit, is we're going to shift gears a little bit in the second half. So the first half, I've talked about how to do most of the things that you can get going on when it comes to using Blender for stuff. But for the second half, we're going to reduce the Blender hour or remove it, and only because there's so much to do now in the second half when it comes to Unity that would be spending more time in Unity and less time in Blender. So that I think for the second half, you're probably not going to see Blender all that much until we get to probably something like mesh animations with Mixamo and organic modeling, because I got so much more to deal with in Unity. There's a lot to do, so that's why you probably won't see a lot of Blender in the second, right? So hopefully that's okay with you guys, because that's what the plan was anyway. All right, so that is a bit of a course update in terms of where we are and what's happening. So what's going on this week? This week is our mid-semester checkpoint, which I'm really looking forward to seeing starting today, and kind of looking at your stuff for Thursday. And I'm going to answer some of these questions in a second that I see here on the chat. I want to make sure I answer to all of them. Stuff that's due or released is Project Part 5. I've released the alpha build requirements that's due week 9, and that'll be on the Sunday. And the 7th weekly report is due this Friday, and the second peer review is also due this Friday. The second peer review is on relates to your project checkpoint, so mid-semester checkpoint. That's what it's really about up to this point. So everything up to your mid-semester checkpoint will be affected, including your previous release. So please make sure that you fill this out. Again, I'm using those to adjust marks. That's why the other one hasn't been completed yet. I want to make sure I have a couple of samples, before I move on. And the reason for this is I want to see a trend. I want to see a trend in your participation, your contribution, and all those kind of things. That's what I also use these things for. And a lot of times when I look at them back to back, they tell a story in terms of what you're doing and what trouble your team is having, or how graded everything is as well, right? So that's what's coming up there. Okay, we're going to start saving and loading. Lab's going to be doing Fridays from now on. Well, no, it depends. But this Friday definitely is going to happen, because I could make it do Sunday if you really want me to. But this week we don't have a lab. Yeah. But I moved it because I wanted to give you guys some time, right? So
Fair enough. It was a little confusing because I think I read on the lab description that was due Sunday the 18th. But wait, Sunday's the 20th. But
Yeah,
anyways,
yeah.
anyways,
Anyways, I moved it forward because I wanted to make sure that you guys had a chance to submit it. And some people thought that it was due yesterday for some reason. And no, I did not open up stuff. There's no extension on labs. So if you don't get your lab done, then you don't get your lab done. That's how it is, right? So um, let's continue going through this stuff. Chris says, had a mild issue with using Stream Reader Writer with WebGL. Was wondering if that's the only for WebGL effects other than builds as well. No, I wouldn't even use Stream Reader and Writer, Chris, because where it's being stored is I would use player preferences, which is what we're going to do. Okay, so is there a way to use on pointer enter, on pointer drag functions with a layer mask? I can get around it using by manual raycast, but I'm not sure what the best way to do it is. Talking about object selection. Yeah, their on pointer enter is interesting. Can you get around without a layer mask? What do you? So you're using a layer mask basically to make sure that whatever you're selecting is the thing that your mouse is over. I'm guessing, right? So let's. If you have time after this, we won't probably be long, Kara. Maybe we can have a chat about it. I want to see what you're doing, and then maybe I'll have a better answer for you. Shader graph, yeah, it's coming up. There's still a demo video due for this Sunday too. Yes, you do. You get 2 freebie labs anyway. You absolutely do. Resources load, that's the way to go. Resources load is the best way to go. Okay. Because if there's something in the way, it doesn't work. Yeah, that's true, because what you're doing is there's another way to do it is to use a raycast from your mouse position, which is similar to what the mouse does anyway. But you can do you're going to be using your finger, right, for mobile if you're going to do selection, right? So what you'd be doing is you're actually pressing on the object with your finger, which is kind of the same thing. So imagine if when you convert things to mobile, when you move your finger over, it's like you're selecting it, right, in that way. So in other ways, you're gonna have to do some kind of raycast for the selection piece. Yeah, text file works okay as well, but that's loading the level. That's when the file is already there. But when you're loading and saving, you need to use something like player prefs. Okay, so that's kind of the questions I have. I wanted to talk about the alpha release before we move on, so let's do that too. So I've put this up already. It's due Sunday, March 13th, 2022 at midnight so far. Basically, what you need for this one is more assets. So try and get your assets up to 90% of your level if you don't have that already. Loading, saving, and pausing is required at this point, so that by week 9. This should say 4th, not 5th. It's a 4th official iteration of your game design document. And more or less, one thing that I talk about here is a lot of your goal for this release is to convert your WebGL game to mobile. All right, so ensure that your menu screen is optimized for mobile, which means it should work. It should work on the viewport. So we're going to be testing the mobile viewport starting on week 9. An option screen, again, key mapping options should work. And I talked about how you can make them work with right and left-handed support for mobile devices instead. So things like I recommend at least a couple of templates, because you can't really do key mapping, but what you could do is switch your on-screen keys around, which is something that you're going to have to be working with. So again, it says that this will move on-screen button controls in the appropriate positions. And that's the most we can hope for most mobile games. Some of them allow you to drag and drop your buttons around as well. But for the most part, I haven't seen that as much. Usually there's a couple of presets and that's it. A gameplay screen where the game occurs, 90% of your assets should be fully functional at this point. Right, enemies should be placed on the level and be 90% effective. Ensure that you include on-screen controls to allow your player to be controlled with the mobile device. So again, you can see that is an add-on. Inventory must work. And again, if drag and drop is a mechanic for using your inventory system, it should be functional. ensure that your inventory system is tested thoroughly with mobile, because a lot of times an inventory system might work fine with WebGL, but then in mobile it doesn't work at all. Health system should be fully functional. We'll work on that as well. Gameplay level must include a user interface that allows player to pause game, save the game, and load the game. Saving and pausing and loading and all that stuff is fine. And I say you may want to use scriptable objects to enable this for both WebGL and mobile build targets. But this is only one part of it. The other part is player preferences, which is something that we're going to get into. Your game will include sound effects and soundtracks. That's normal. So everything else is pretty much the same. But make sure that it's optimized for mobile. In fact, one thing that you should always do is optimize all your textures for mobile as well. And I'll talk about how to do that in the week when we come back. All right. So that's something we're going to be discussing. Some mobile optimizations. For the most part, this is all the same that we had before. I didn't ask you to do more here, I don't think. Drag and drop functionality if you want it. Test thoroughly for mobile. Test your tower assets for mobile. A lot of this I'm asking you to test for mobile because it works differently, of course, especially in 3D compared to what it works like in WebGL. And again, I don't think anyone's doing this at this point. So everyone's doing either tower defense or they're doing 3D platforming. So we're pretty good there. Fourth draft of your GED, nothing different there. Just additional things for mobile. Make sure you follow this in terms of making your screens, wireframes, and all that stuff for mobile should be included. Those things should be there. Release demo video as per normal. Version control deployed to emulator is new. So I'm asking you to deploy to emulator like LD Player or something else, or if you want a mobile device of your choice that you can share with another screencasting software is also fine. So if you want to do, kind of deploy to a live device, a lot of times it's easier to show off your game and play your game with a mobile device compared to the device emulator. Also, remember that device emulator for the most part has fallback controls for keyboard, mouse, and for a gamepad. So it's up to you how you demonstrate it. I don't expect your mobile device to be the only way. I don't need you to touch your screen as long as touch support works. When I try it, everything is okay. Project management is an update, and that's really it. So really, although it's worth 10% of your final grade, there's not a lot of new things other than the saving and loading. The rest is basically you putting up to speed, adding buttons for mobile, like touch controls and those things. And you've known all along this is coming, so some of you may have already included some of those things ahead of time. And hopefully you did. If you're good project managers, then you may have thought about, hey, how do I add screen controls? We know it's coming. Mobile is the second half of semester, and so on. You may have decided to do that. Any questions around your alpha build, which is due the week you come back, but on the Sunday? Our UI was designed for mobile right from the start. Awesome. That's great, Kira. We test with LD Player. Mandeep, that's awesome. That's exactly what we're looking at, right? Because at the end of the day, you knew this was coming. You knew that WebGL was only a prototype phase. So, that's good. If you plan that way, you're going to be golden, right? There's not going to be an issue. That's great. That's fantastic, Vince. Okay, so let's move away from this then. So if there's no questions, that's what's due. I don't think it's out of this world, the stuff that's happening, and I'm hoping that I'll see the rest of you. I know there's only 20 of you here today, but hopefully I'll see the rest of you on Thursday, and then I want to make sure that all your teams. This is the project checkpoint, just to give you a sense of what this is about, is really a checkpoint, almost like a sanity check. I also got to say that, okay, which means that I check to see if you are okay. Like, are you guys doing okay with your teams? Are people cooperating? All that kind of stuff. So it's super important that you let me know through your peer review, because during your break, I will be bringing everything up to speed. And I want to make sure that things are good so I can adjust marks accordingly. And if people aren't working on your team, then we need to know so we can make changes after the break if necessary. Hopefully we won't have any changes and that everyone is perfect, but it's seldom the case. All right, without further ado, if there's no other questions, then I'm just gonna, again, are there any questions? You can come on the mic or put your hand up in the interface as well if you have a question before we move on. So I'd like to get Vince his time in the sun, because his, you know how it is. his app is going to, or his game is going to wow us to the point where we want to buy it right away, right, Vince?
Well,
So,
you have something.
sure. Okay, Mandeep, I see that. Yes, we can speak after. Okay, Vince, well then I will stop sharing my screen. And then what I'll do is I'll enable sharing for you. And then I will, yeah, I'm ready for you whenever you're ready.
Okay, all right, all right. Let's see here. Let me just get myself set up. Let me get Okay, so I'm gonna see if I can start sharing sound. By the way, we'll see when it gets there to demo out sounds for our game. But all right, share slideshow. All right, give you a few moments to sort of breathe.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Vincent Ho. I'm representing Geeks Garage, and this is our project checkpoint for our mobile game, RIONA the Empire Saviour. To start off, we'll introduce ourselves once again. I'll introduce on behalf of the team. So I myself am the lead game designer. Vineet Kumar is our lead software engineer. Hardik Shah is our game producer. Nagar Saidi is our user interface and tools programmer. Nigin Saidi is our gameplay programmer. To reiterate what we presented from the last checkpoint, our game is a 3D platformer shooter played on a mobile device. The player controls a wanderer named RIONA, who is on a mission to eliminate an enemy invasion force in the Imperial Castle. She must make use of her skills, her agility, marksmanship, magical skills to clear the castle of all intruders. So as I mentioned earlier, our aesthetic is closely similar to that of Cameo Elements of Power from the Xbox 360 era. And how we've sort of done that is you can see we got a little castle environment. I made this in Blender. And this is sort of like a little clip of our game in action. But I will be doing a live video later. Our different mechanics is that the player will be able to move, jump, and attack. The primary focus will be centered around aiming and attacking methods. So what we essentially have is like a little toggle switch between your platformer mode, which is sort of like our exploration mode, where RIONA is able to move around and jump, and shooter mode, where RIONA can't jump, but she'll be able to shoot fireballs from her hands. To succeed in the game, the player must master switching between both of these modes, and she must also learn how to use the items with our inventory system to efficiently take down enemies and survive within a specific allotted amount of time. As I mentioned earlier about the aesthetics, here's our sort of like castle layout. It's in flames. It's surrounded by enemies, and you got to clear them all out. This is the visual aesthetic that we achieved in terms of environmental design. I'll demonstrate and explain more in the demo video. In terms of our checkpoints and our list of things that we got done for our project checkpoint, we have our menu screen, options, we have our gameplay scene working, we have an inventory system working, we have health system for both the player and the enemies working. Our pause, save, load, and load implementation, we do have pausing working, and we have the ability to at least click the save and load buttons, which is as per required in the checklist. Sound effects and game soundtracks, we do have music for different screens. Hopefully it'll show in the WebGL build when I build it. And the game type requirements, those were in our 3D platformer. We have 3 different platforms. We have 2 hazards working, and we have a goal requirement, which is kill all the enemies and you win that level. So before we go to Q&A, I'm going to launch the WebGL build. So this is us. This is our build. It's launching. It's made in Unity. I'm going to full screen it. Can y'all hear anything right now? I set the volume to low, but we do have a volume slider. It's at least playing on my end. In chat, does anybody hear anything right now? You guys can hear it? Perfect. Perfect. We also have key binding options, so you can click this and you can press a button to remap your keys, and they should appear as well in the game. So we're going to start with a new game. So you see, this is our main character, and this is our game. So you got to move around. You got to start killing these enemies. They have a line of sight, so they're going to start looking at you, and they're going to start chasing you. And then when you get close enough, they're going to attack me. So like, ow, I took some damage. I can fire at them. Takes 2 shots to kill these guys. When you hit them, it plays some sound effects. So the different types of platforms I got, it's this jump pad right here. I launch it, it launches me upwards. We have a levitating platform. You can jump off of these. I gotta kill this guy right here. This is our shrinking platform, so when I stand on top of it, it's gonna start shrinking, as you can see. Gotta get off of it. I'm gonna kill this guy right here. I'm gonna make my way down. I'm gonna start clearing these enemies. We have two different enemy types, and they're both grounded enemy types, which chase us and attack us. And flying enemies, they will chase us as well when we get closer to them. Gotta just kill this guy before he attacks me. Kill them. We have two different hazards working as per the requirements. So spikes hurt me when I come into contact with them. Ow. And ow. The flames, if I stay in here for some amount of time, I'm gonna start taking damage over time, as you can see here. If I go over here, I can open my inventory screen. It's gotta grab something. It'll appear in the pickups. You can see here, there's an inventory that we can interact with. I click it, it disappears from the screen. Kill this guy right here. And the last few sets of enemies, there's one over here. Should be at least, yeah, there's one more enemy down here. I'm gonna kill this guy. Shoot him from downtown. The last one I placed high up over there. So I'm gonna make my way on top of these platforms. This is sort of just to teach the player the basics of how to do platforming. Use these jump pads to get up top. Oh, I guess that doesn't work. We do have a death plane working, so I'll just jump here. Technically have a death plane. It resets me over to a specific part in the game where I interacted with the checkpoint earlier, so it spawned me over there. So I'm just gonna go ahead. I still got 2 minutes remaining. I'm gonna start climbing my way up. Don't fail at platforming this time. I'm failing at platforming. All right, before I kill this last enemy, I'll at least demonstrate the key mapping. So I'm gonna go to the pause menu, go to options. I'm gonna remap my bindings to up, down, left, right. And it should be moving with the arrow keys now. Yeah, you can't see it. I mean, I can tell you it's working. I am using the arrow keys on my screen right now. Okay. I'll rebind my mappings to WAS. Oh, dang it. S, A, D, K. All right, gotta kill this last dude. And it should take me to a win screen. Yep, so it shows you your score, shows you the time it took, time left in the game before you get set to a game over screen. And you can go back to the main menu or play the game again. That's essentially our game. Don't need to worry about the exit implementation, but yeah, that is the playable demo that we have. And then can just close this. Oh yeah, sure. We can display our Trello board. So this is what we've been using to keep track of all our stuff. We have plenty of things in our done side, and plenty of stuff in progress. Plenty of stuff to sprint. But yeah, this is constantly updated as we go along. And yeah, that's essentially it for our Q&A. We are very much open to Q&A right now. And thank you guys for listening to our presentation. We hope we at least set some expectations, hopefully broke some of those expectations. And we'd like to hear what you guys think.
All right, thank you for that. So let's go with and yeah, please stay where you are. Let's go with some questions first. So I know that there might be some questions online. Let's look at that. And we got some claps happening. This is great. But does anyone have any questions or comments or anything they want to add? You can come on the mic, guys. It might be easier for you to ask the questions. No questions, Vince. All right.
I got one.
Oh yeah, go ahead, please. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, any other questions from anybody else? Again, ask questions about technical things, guys. You can ask questions about whatever you want. I know this is, I want you guys to think about this as a mini conference because at the end of the day, we have a chance to share, kind of secrets, things that you've done that worked, things that you've had challenges with, those kind of things that you can talk to Vince about. And again, I'll do the same thing on Thursday for the people that are there. So please interact. I think this is a great opportunity for us to work with each other on this stuff, right? So.
Okay, yeah, this is Sam speaking. I wondered if you talk a little bit about the switching state between the shooter mode and the running around mode, whether that changed other parameters and how that came together.
Okay, so the concept of the idea I had for the moving and shooting mechanic came from Genshin Impact, where there are certain characters that have the ability to toggle into a shooter mode. So that's where that inspiration sort of came to be. And is it anything else in terms of like the implementation requirement, implementation side of things, or is just sort of like the concept of how I just sort of landed on that idea?
Yeah, I'm curious implementation wise, whether it's like a state machine that enters into a different movement script, or whether it's something else.
Can I speak over here? Yeah, do it. Yeah, so that was done by a simple state. Like it's not exactly like a state machine, but there are two states for exploration and combat. At that time, the camera adjustment takes place. So both the cameras are same. They're going to follow the character at all times. But the moment the change of state happens with the button click trigger, there's always the type of controls that input that the player can give. It'll automatically change to the state that you're in. So right now, when you saw that you had the entire camera moving around the player to look around in exploration mode, which gave the control to the camera. So any direction that is going to change of the player while movement depends entirely on your the only controls WASD and joystick, virtual joystick which you have. But once you're in combat mode, everything is going to be similar to how you are in a first-person shooter mode. Your mouse or your basically your touch on the screen that takes care of the rotation around the y-axis, make the player rotate here and there, and there will be a clamped x-axis rotation too, which takes care. I think it's x-axis. Yeah. That takes care of the up and down movement. Yeah, it will be vertical to slightly adjust it towards so that the player can look and aim at a particular direction. Okay. So it's similar to a state, but it's not completely entirely dependent on two states. In terms of, sorry, no, ask the question first. Maybe.
Did you say you're using two different cameras and then just the main camera?
Yep. Though the trigger comes from over there. So when the two different cameras are there, first is to have to I think you do remember my the game production one that I had. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So exactly the same mechanism. Two different cameras, two different states. At that time, a similar concept was implemented over here. I did not know the game correlation after I saw the game that Vincent has suggested, and that time I got to know that there is a proper way to do this. So that's how the camera change works, and immediately on the camera change, a state will trigger like that. So that's how it works.
Very cool. Sounds very smart.
Yeah, nice.
In terms of like how this is going to transfer into the mobile side, the way how Genshin Impact did their sort of toggle was there's a specific button that will bring you into the over-the-shoulder look. In terms of how we implemented that in this current build is I click my right mouse button and it put me in the over-shoulder mode. And how we're going to transfer that over into mobile is we will have a UI button set beside the jump button and a little bit like offset from the jump button. So like when you press it, it'll go into over the shoulder. And the way you'll control the camera is you'll drag along the screen. You'll drag your finger along the screen, not touching any buttons, but just allow the screen to rotate your aiming reticle.
Interesting. Okay, looking forward to seeing that. That's for sure. Any other questions, or technical or otherwise? I got some.
Chris says, "Curious to see how the movie enters."
Yeah.
Yeah, I just answered that.
Yeah. All right, I got some. So can you put together can you launch your demo again one more time?
Through WebGL build?
Sure, doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is because Alex is watching remotely as well.
Yeah, Alex, you too.
Yeah, he's out there. He's watching. So I wanted to give him a bit of a show too. But okay, so one of the things I had a question about, if you go to your option screen, how do you, again, what I've given you guys is to switch to left-handed mode for your key binding stuff that you're doing, right? Which is good. What are your plans when you come into when you're with mobile? What do you plan to do with this screen? And this is just a general.
So our different idea for the different mobile layouts is that we have different set templates for which we lay out the UI buttons. So one screen will have one set of button layouts, and another sort of like toggle option will have another set of layouts for buttons. So perhaps like one screen will have the virtual joystick on the left side, the other screen will have a vertical joystick on the right side, and all the action buttons on the left side as well. That's our sort of method.
Okay. Again, things like prototyping that screen and doing wireframes for that would be great. I'd like to see that in your GDD as well for your alpha. Can you go to the start the game now? So go back. Good. And again, I don't mind about you killing enemies or whatever. So things that are, you said that the flying enemy is something you made in Blender. Is that what you said?
No, the level was made in Blender.
Oh, the whole level.
The flying enemies were found online.
Okay, all right. I was like,
sorry if there was a bit of a misconception.
No, it's my bad. I was just thinking about how they look, and they don't look. That's the one thing that kind of doesn't match with everything else, right? That's why I asked, right? Because I think your knights and your character that you're using and all that stuff looks good, but I think just the aesthetic of the flying enemies, I'm not sure if you want to replace that model with something else. That's all I'm asking.
I can probably pop into Blender and add some textures in there down the road. As you said, only like 75% of the enemies need to be like fully functional for this release.
Yeah, so absolutely. Yeah, I'm just asking. Okay, yeah, no, it's fine. The other thing was, if you could start it again. So I guess you have plans for more particle systems and reactions when she gets hit, when your main character gets hit. Okay, good. Otherwise, things to consider for mobile. I'm glad you're using simple particle systems for the fires and all that stuff, because when you make kind of particle effects using VFX graph or shader graph, the biggest problem is how it converts to mobile in terms of the stuff you're doing, right? So just keep that in mind, because mobile textures are typically lower. And remember, you have a limited number of draw calls you can do on mobile compared to desktop. The other thing that I want to think about is your health bars. If you can see it, look at your enemies for a second. I like that they're billboarded. You guys got this right already, and the feet from an animation perspective aren't that slidey. It looks like your timing is pretty good in terms of how this thing works, until they get stuck, like the enemies, right? But how are you doing how are they attacking you? Are they patrolling? Like, what's your tech here that you're using?
Yeah, I'm here. So
okay, so as soon as they see you, but meanwhile they're just sitting there. So they're walking around, and then as soon as they see you, like they're
go ahead. So there is a patrol point. So if they don't see the character, they will patrol into the map, and when they see the character, they will chase towards the player instead of patrolling. They will change the state.
Okay, so again, things to note for whoever's doing in charge of animations are you probably need some additional animations for the walk. As you can see that they're walking like in a very, very, they're walking the exact same every single time. But again, they only have one enemy here, really, and then the flying enemy, right? So again, you don't have to have more, but what you could do is you could add additional animation states for, if the enemy is coming towards you compared to if they're, just going straight, because it looks like the enemy is actually walking sideways. Go back down there again, Vince. Take a look.
Yeah.
Like, and look how close you are to that enemy. He's not picking you up as, when you say line of sight, it's like, they literally have to be looking at you, eh, Hardik?
Yeah, it is like a box collider in there. I tried to do recap thing, but it didn't work, so I put the box trigger there.
Yeah, so yeah.
Doing
Yeah, so think of that way, and also think about things like look at that enemy you can see right there. It's kind of like right near the middle of the screen near her head right now. See how it's like just sitting there and sliding? Why is that?
Yeah.
Right? So either move to an idle mode, right? Like an idle animation where they're not moving, or get them to move from one checkpoint to the other. Like if you're going to give them a patrol path, make them patrol, right? Like right now they're just sitting there, and that's not doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So just again, it's up to you, like what level you want to take this to. But to me, it's I always try and think about what makes sense and what's reasonable to do within the semester. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, I like the camera effects that you were mentioning before, Vineet. That's pretty cool. The health bars also. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think they're too big? Like from here, they're okay. Oh no, the player's health bar is perfect, I think. The only thing that I would do probably, no problem, just play again. The only thing that I would do different for the player's health bar is maybe add a background, right? Because it kind of is transparent and it's, and you can see it even here when you kind of, yeah, right there, you can see that the particle systems go right through it, which is okay. But again, in mobile, you might even have a more of a drastic artifact with that. So be careful. I'd recommend using a background. And like I said, I might just from a health bar perspective make them just slightly smaller. They're wider than the entire player right now in terms of how big they are. So that again, I don't know about how you guys feel about it. I just feel like it should be just slightly smaller. But again, it's part of your aesthetic. Yeah, it's like things that you can tweak. But this is what this is for. This is feedback, right? For you, or this is a very early version of your game before alpha for this semester. And just to give you some kind of feedback, it's good. But yeah, so I would say set up states for them. We've done states in AI, things like what does patrolling look like? Perhaps Hardik, instead of just doing line of sight, think about a sensing radius, where even if your character drops down behind the enemy, as long as they're within that radius, they turn around and they're like, "Hey, oh my God, there's something I got to attack here." Because really, the player's not invisible, right? But the enemies, although they're on the same level, should be able to see you anywhere on this level, right? So again, it really depends on how your game mechanics work, right? So Sam also suggests that health bar showing only after hitting an enemy could go a long way to helping along. I agree. I think that's okay. The other, of course, better way to do it would be using more diegetic health, which means you'd have your enemy would be bleeding or walking differently, or something like that, having a different animation when they're hurt compared to when they're well. But again, these are all extra things to make your game even better, as opposed to just meeting requirements, right? So just these are things to think about for the future if you have time, right? It's not going to make a difference for the course, but this is maybe one of your last games you'll be making this semester, right? So that's why I'm trying to give you an opportunity to make it really pop, make it great, and use it as something that you can show other people, right? You should be proud of this thing at the end of the day, right? So that's all. Mini map. You have standard markers for everything. which is okay. That's what we did in the mini map. But going forward, what you could also do is, if you wanted to include different markers for flying enemies compared to patrolling enemies, you can do that very easily. Just switch out the marker, change the shape of the mini map instead of of that round shape to match your aesthetic. So things like think about this. This is more like a medieval kind of high fantasy setting, kind of thing. So you can make it so it looks like a shield, or it looks like a hexagon, or some other shape. Remember, it's just the mask that you can use for your mini map to change what it looks like, right? So it's like there's a lot of little things you could do, beyond what you have. One thing I really love about what you've done, guys, is you've already thought about mobile, which is great. I see your perspective and your everything. It looks like it's compatible with mobile. Its size for mobile looks like a landscape layout, right? So your aspect ratio seems to be good. Everything else is good, and it doesn't look like you're using a lot of shadows and those kind of things, which is also very good for mobile, because the more shadows and light effects you have, then the more computationally expensive everything is going to be, right? So those are good things, right? So yeah.
Okay.
So those are the kind of things. Thank you, Nagar. Yeah, I was thinking about that if you're in the safe zone for mobile, that's really good. The way you position your UI is very balanced as well. Looks like it's in the middle of the screen. So things that we learned from last semester are here. I can see some of those things, which is great. And I love the fact that can you show me your inventory again, Vince? Yeah. So that's something like in WebGL, see how your mouse moves your camera at the same time that you're that you're accessing your inventory. So in inventory mode, if you're going to do a WebGL build, as soon as you launch inventory, everything should pause. Really, again, that's up to you. If you want to make it so that you can never pause, because that's the kind of competitive game you want to make, that's fine. But then your mouse shouldn't move your screen. Your camera, you shouldn't be able to be in inventory mode and move your camera around, right? So, but that's just because you're going to be in. Actually, that should be in mobile as well as WebGL mode, right? So, question for Tom. It says there is a good way to kind of benchmark our project for mobile specs. Yep, I'm going to show you that, Sam. So when we get to week 9, when we start off, I'm going to show you how to change your textures and those kind of things, and also talk about there's a performance graph that we can use in Unity that'll show us how you're doing both memory-wise and everything else. Okay. All right. So yeah, otherwise, I think you guys got a great little start. Good foundation for your game. I know what you're doing. I feel like I know what you're doing, and I think this is great as a start. Everything, all the pieces that you need are there, and I think that's where we want it to be, right? So good job, guys. Really great job.
That's kind of like the hope of the goal for today,
anyways. Yeah. I mean,
we are in a good state to move forward.
And I think the great thing for me is, and thank you, Vince, because you were the only presenter. I got to spend more time asking those kind of questions. But those are the same questions, guys, that you should be asking yourself. Again, there's little minor tweaks and stuff like we can see with every game. Like for example, the menu, those the flags for your buttons and stuff. One thing I wanted to ask was your key binding stuff. What technology did you use for that? Did you use scriptable objects? What did you use?
Nagar, if you may.
Oh yeah. I didn't use scriptable object. I just used the dictionary for that.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. So key value pairs, basically. That's good. Excellent. Yeah. Okay. That's a really smart way of doing it as well. Okay, great. Okay, guys, thank you so much for that. Fantastic job, Vince. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the other groups. Stuff coming up on. Coming up on Thursday. Again, for me, it's always a pleasure to see progress. And remember, what we want to do is when we kind of think about what we're doing, right? Again, we're sitting at Project Checkpoint this week, week 7, and every week that goes on, every time you release something, every couple weeks after that, right? And there's 3 weeks between your alpha and beta release, but every time you're going to add additional features, do more tweaking, all that kind of stuff to get your game as shippable as possible, I would say, for the time. So again, super great job, Vince. Thank you so much. I knew you were going to overperform, and and I'm really happy with what you did. But that really is all I have for today. But what we will do is we will talk on Thursday, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone else's. Anyone has any questions before we depart for the day? Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Any questions for me at all? Vince, are you good? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry. So well, we'll stop the video for this one, but yes, no problem. Otherwise, guys, thank you for joining me on YouTube. For those people who are there, thanks for Alex for his support as always. And I will stop the YouTube video, and we'll see everybody on Thursday for the second piece. And then in the meantime, for the people that are here, I'll show you guys the AI. All right, so that is